Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on Casual Comic Fans. I'm Mike, and this is Luke.
Hey.
And today we're doing our review of Superman and Lois. A little late, but whatever. Stuff happens. We're pretty busy.
Yep. Episode 1. It's called The Pilot.
Right. Yeah.
So that's fun.
Pretty creative. Yeah.
I've noticed some Easter eggs. Obviously, in the nuclear plant, he freezes the lake, which is kind of like what he does in Superman 3.
Right.
And he drops it into the nuclear plant.
Right.
And also in his kitchen, when they're still in Metropolis, there's like this whiteboard.
Yeah.
And it says like call Donner or whatever.
Yeah, called Dr. Donner.
Yeah.
I think it might have been like a different shoot or a different version of the scene, but I know one of the actors posted a picture, an up-close picture of that whiteboard or blackboard, and it said Dr. Reeves instead of Dr. Donner, which is obviously for Christopher Reeves, and Dr. Donner is obviously
Richard
for
Donner. Yeah.
Which, I'll be honest, like, I'm probably an idiot, but I did not realize until the last few months that Richard Donner, like, wrote or at least directed all the Lethal Weapon movies.
Yeah, he did.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. I only knew him from the Superman movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was something else. I think they said something about Call, like T. Welling or something.
Yeah,
that was on the blackboard, too.
It was it Spiegel or one of the Superman co-creators was on there, I think, as well. I don't remember their last names.
Siegel, Shuster and Siegel.
Yeah, one of those two names was on there.
Okay,
too, so.
That's cool. Yeah, a little Easter egg there. But yeah, overall, I guess color me impressed. No, we
it was great.
We talked about this a little bit in our video a week ago, which I'm gonna put a link up here, but. We talked about the trailer for the show and how it looks pretty interesting, and honestly, it didn't disappoint. The trailer was a pretty accurate representation. It seemed like the trailer was pretty much just scenes from this pilot, but it was pretty much what I wanted and what I expected from the trailer. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
For first things first, so obviously a lot of people will like to compare stuff, and I don't want to compare like the different Supermen. For me personally, my favorite has been Henry Cavill. Just the way he's portrayed in the movies he's been in, but also like the way he portrays the character.
Yeah.
That being said, I really do like this version of Superman,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's not like they even changed my mind about Tyler Hoechlin's Superman, because I never like had a problem with him as Superman.
Yeah.
It was more the way they depicted him, which we talked about in that video, but they basically made him take like a backseat to Supergirl and everybody else, whereas he's supposed to be like the main guy, And so this show almost feels like a soft reboot. Almost feels like a full reboot with the same actors, because everything's different. Yeah,
I didn't see any references to any other shows.
No.
So it's like it's its own thing.
It's very
almost
confusing. Like, I don't really care because I don't really follow the CW shows, but it is confusing where this fits in the timeline, because for one thing, they just had Lois was just pregnant like 2 crossovers ago. So they just had the kids, but now the kids are like 14. So it's been like 14 years. So it's like, is this even the same timeline anymore? Which, again, I don't care. But they also they had a bunch of flashbacks at the beginning of the episode, and none of them actually showed his original suit, which thank God. But also it's almost like they're like just restarting these versions of these characters, which I'm okay with,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I liked everything. I did like the beginning a lot, where he kind of went over his history. It didn't feel too like expositionary. I think it worked. It worked as an intro. Of course, we see Pa Kent die with a heart attack, like we've seen in the original Superman movie in like the 70s. Also, his ship is different. Like, the ship he came in as a child looks really cool, I think, but it also doesn't look anything like Kara's from Supergirl. So it's almost like they're distancing themselves from all that. Like, they didn't mention him like with Kara at all. They didn't mention her existence at all.
Right.
So it almost feels like they are just making this sort of like how Joker and the Batman are self-contained movies. It almost feels like this is a self-contained series with the same actors.
Yeah.
They also changed General Lane's character too. Like he was a bit of like the Thunderbolt Rossi in this, kind of like in the Hulk, he was kind of like General Ross. But I remember in the Supergirl series, he's basically just like a raging, sexist, terrible person. Like they basically, and in this, he seems like a good guy. He just kind of,
Right.
a bit of a jerk, but not like not a horrible person like they portrayed him in Supergirl. So
Yeah.
yeah, who knows what they're doing, but I don't really care. I'm just enjoying the series.
Yeah, I really like what they did with the kids. How you thought like it was going to be the football one, but it turned
Oh
out to
yeah.
be the Jordan instead of John.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to say one thing about
Sure.
the beginning. They had like that callback to classic Superman, which I thought was a cool
With the
Easter
car.
egg. Yeah,
Yeah.
the car was very much an adaptation of Action Comics 1, the cover of Action Comics 1.
Right.
And his suit was very much, I forget what it's called, but it was the suit he had in like the old 1950 Superman cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was a cool Easter egg. Thank God. Like I would not like that suit to be in the whole series, but
Right.
it was it was a cool Easter egg, and they made it look pretty cool for what it was. And
Yeah.
speaking of a suit, I do really like the new suit. It's
Right.
I like the colors. It's obviously padded a little bit, but they
Oh,
do
yeah,
that all
for
the
sure.
time. Even with Henry Cavill's Superman suit, which he's obviously pretty jacked, but they still pad the suits so that you can still see their muscles. If it were just spandex or just the material, you wouldn't be able to see,
Yeah.
the classic muscle builder superhero look.
Right. Right.
The only time I think this suit didn't look good was in some of the action sequences. The way he twisted,
Right.
you could see very prominently that it was padded, and it looked a little bit meh. But I can't complain too much because it was still a cool suit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
But yeah, you were talking about the kids' powers. We did talk about that in the other video again. Like I said, it was probably going to be like a hero's situation. Like they either both had powers or
Right.
one brother didn't, and it was gonna sort of be like one brother's kind of jealous for the other one. But they did a good job. Like it was predictable in that sense, but not predictable about who was gonna get it.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the whole time, like I did kind of think it was gonna be more predictable. Like Jonathan had the powers
Right.
and Jordan didn't, but then they revealed later on in the episode that Jordan was one with the powers, which was an interesting twist.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if John had some powers
Yeah.
later on too. But for right now,
Yeah.
it's just Jordan.
Well,
Yeah.
for right now, all they've shown with Jordan is like his strength and laser vision.
Laser eyes.
I'm
Yeah.
still holding out a bit for my theory that maybe they each have some of his powers.
Sure.
Like maybe Jonathan has like flight and some of his like X-ray vision or something, and Jordan
Yeah.
has the other stuff, or maybe it turns out
Right.
that they both have all his powers. I don't know.
Yeah.
You could get into the genetics of it, but it's like like which of his powers are like recessive and which are dominant, and how would that work with a human?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
He's not even human. How does that work?
right. I highly doubt Jonathan won't have powers the whole season,
Yeah.
the whole series, or
Yeah.
even the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I really like just the whole tone of this series. So far, it's not afraid to have some light moments, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But it doesn't have unnecessary stupid joking around like a lot of the Super CW shows have.
Right.
And it has a very serious tone to it. They aren't afraid to tackle serious issues like Jordan has social
Yeah.
anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
I think that was very interesting. I think so far they've tackled it well. It's
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
actually are talking about mental health with teens, and it hasn't been really heavy-handed like 13 Reasons Why is just this like it's just like awful all the time, whereas this was more, I think, an accurate depiction. They had to deal with real family
Another
problems.
thing that they kind of hinted at that was a real world problem was how like these big corporations are buying all the farmland.
Yeah.
That's like a real thing that's happening.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting how they put that in there.
Yeah, buying up news outlets too.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like he bought the
Yeah.
Daily Planet, and he basically cleaned house, fired Clark, which was interesting. I just really like the direction it's going because it's very different from anything we've seen before, and different isn't always better, but in this case, I think it's a cool thing to do. We kind of saw this a little bit in, I think, Crisis on Infinite Earths. We saw the Smallville version, like Tom Welling and Erica Durant, so they were back on the Smallville farm, but now we're seeing that and seeing it more expounded upon in this series with their kids. They have a whole kids, and they're moving away from Metropolis, which who knows how that's going to work with him being Superman.
Right.
But I guess General Lane is sort of his like liaison, kind of telling him like what oh, we need your help with this. So
Yeah. What do you think about Captain Luthor at the very end?
yeah, that was interesting. So I think overall the villain was a mixed bag. Like I still like his armor, even though it looks basically like Master Chief and Doom guy had a love child. But it still looks cool. It's still cool looking armor. The thing is, I think the voice acting is a little interesting. Like it's not what I expected. I expected it to be more like big boomy, but instead he's like hi Superman or something. It was like the voice acting. Like it wasn't bad. It was just not what I expected. I feel like it doesn't really match its appearance, but whatever.
Sure. Do you think that it's Lex Luthor, or do you think it's someone else?
I think, well, for one thing, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because we already know, at least so far, John Cryer has been Lex Luthor in the CW verse, and normally, like we already said, this feels rebooted, but at the same time, they're using all the same actors. So why would they not use? I feel like it's probably like a future version, or like maybe like his ancestor, or his like his grandson or something, because he obviously seems like he's like from the future or something, because he said he was from a world that was destroyed. Like it could be he's from a different Earth, and like for some reason that Earth got destroyed during Crisis on Infinite Earths. But it does say Captain Luthor, so I don't think this is obviously not the traditional Lex we're used to.
Exactly.
But I do think it's funny that it does seem like he is a version of Lex Luthor, or at least his offspring or something, because I was thinking in the trailer, like, the only person I can think of who has a green suit like that is Lex Luthor. But I don't think it's Lex Luthor, but, I mean, it seems like it's sort of Lex Luthor. But, I am interested to see what his vendetta is against Superman, and how he knows so much about him. And also how he's so freaking powerful, because, like, he obviously doesn't have powers, or doesn't seem like it, but his suit is, like, strong as hell. Like, Superman was punching it, and it wasn't leaving a dent. And he also seemed to have kryptonite, which he said he used his last bit to stab Superman, and I did find it a bit convenient that he managed to dig it out at the last second, and just, like, it didn't seem to have any lasting effects, which kryptonite normally does, but whatever, it's, nothing's perfect, but I am looking forward to seeing more of what they do with that villain, and, like, see who he really is. I remember that guy being cast, and they said his name was The Stranger. So I thought he was going to be Phantom Stranger, but apparently he's just a brand new villain, or maybe a brand new take on a villain we already know. So I guess we'll see. I do find it interesting that this show has obviously gotten pretty positive reaction from everybody, whether they're fans of the CW or not. And I find it really funny because a lot of the stuff they do in this show is the same directions that Zack Snyder took in Man of Steel, but people pissed and moaned about it when it came out. Like, it has serious themes. The characters, like especially Superman, aren't just like smiling all the time, which a lot of people seem to want. To be honest, like it felt, like he smiled about this. He was about as jovial as Superman was in Man of Steel. I remember watching most of the show, and I'm sitting here like, man, he hasn't smiled that much. Like, I didn't really actually care, but I was thinking, that was for some reason that was an actual like critique of Man of Steel, that he didn't smile enough. So I was thinking like same kind of thing with this. They have a more serious take. The filter for the camera is kind of darker and more muted, which makes it look more like that. Which I think people had problems with that too. So it's really kind of interesting, some of the things that work in this show, and people agree work in this show, people didn't like in Zack Snyder's iteration.
Another criticism that I've seen is that there's not a whole lot of Superman being Superman. He's mostly Clark Kent in this episode, which I'm totally okay with, because it's more humanizing, and I'm down with that.
I think that works well, because I think a lot of times people overlook Clark Kent. They'll either overlook one or the other, but I think in this case it was totally fine. I think there was enough Superman. Like, they were setting up the story, which I appreciated. They didn't just jump right into it, and they really focused a lot on developing the dynamics between the two sons, the dynamics between the whole family, and how like Jordan, like Clark kept trying to like get Jordan to open up, and he just wouldn't. Oh, that's another thing I found interesting. I think it's funny that they're sort of setting up Lana Lang's daughter as like Clark Kent's son's love interest. That's kind of funny. Because they were sort of like, they even mentioned in this that they were love interests when they were like teenagers.
Does she have a daughter in the comics? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think they really revisit Lana that much. Like, she was part of his life, obviously, when he was younger. And they maybe revisit her a little bit, but I don't know if she has a daughter in the comics.
Okay.
But it turns out she has a boyfriend, so that's kind of awkward. but that kind of came out of nowhere. And I was kind of, when that whole fight was happening, I was kind of expecting one of the boys to just frickin' like punch some guy into the stratosphere, and I'm like, like I was wondering how they were gonna do that, because this definitely felt like the perfect time to show their powers, but at the same time, I was like, how are they gonna do this and not kill somebody?
Right. Yeah, it's surprising that nobody died. He exploded the whole fire, and everyone was fine.
But yeah, I think overall the CGI looked really well. All the were really good. All the fight scenes and everything looked good, and I think the story itself was very intriguing. I was even interested in just like the scenes where they were just showing the boys, trying to adjust to high school and stuff like that. So I think they're doing a really good job making these characters really multifaceted, multidimensional, and very interesting. And I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do with the rest of the show. That's for sure. I feel like I feel like they do have a bigger budget. Somebody said it was because of HBO Max and because they have the backing of AT&T. Which is a possibility.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, overall, definitely a thumbs up from me. Looking forward to the next episode Tuesday night, and I hope the rest of the series ends up being this good. And this might be a turning point for CW shows in general. Yeah. Like if they start making more of their shows they already have like this, or they start making new shows with this amount of quality, then I might have to revisit the CW. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But that is something I wanted to mention real quick. I like that DC is not trying to copy Marvel so much anymore. And a lot of people like with Marvel that everything's just in one contained timeline, which they're probably going to mess up a little bit with the Multiverse of Madness and the new Spider-Man, but a lot of people have liked there's one live-action version of everything. But what DC is doing is they're just like, now that they've unlocked the multiverse, they're just like, the hell with it. They're just like doing what they like. There's a lot of self-contained stories, which makes it a little bit confusing to the average viewer because there's so many different versions of the characters. But I think ultimately it's for the better because there's not just one, because there's so many different like stories and the developments of characters throughout all of the comics that it's a little bit limiting to just have one version. I do like that there's multiple versions where you can explore different facets of each character.
Yeah, exactly. There's Teen Titans Go and Titans are two totally different things, but they're based on the same things and they're running at the same time.
And it's also
that's really cool.
It's also nice because it gives the directors more freedom to do stuff. Right. Like with Matt Reeves, he didn't have to, fit anything into from Zack Snyder's stuff. Exactly. He didn't have to do that. And the people on Superman and Lois have the freedom to do what they want. And I frankly think it's cool. I think there's room for a lot of different versions of the same characters, and I like that. Yeah. DC's doing this kind of unique thing. Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, overall, great. I'm looking forward to the next one. And
very good. Yeah,
that was our little review. So thank you everyone for watching. Please leave your thoughts about this episode in the comments and give us a like and a subscribe. And be sure to check out our social media and our new podcast, all that stuff. The links are in the description. And we will see you soon.